everyone, it's Raghu back with Mindrolling, and somebody I haven't talked to or we haven't communicated at all, and it's been a while, Rabbi Rami Shapiro. Glad to have you, Rami.
Nice to be here, Raghu. My pleasure.
So, Rabbi has this wonderful book. I really love this book. I don't know, when did you put it out? The end of last year or something? This book?
Yeah, it came out in 25.
Zen Mind, Jewish Mind, and which is a takeoff on Suzuki Roshi, right?
Right. Zen Mind,
Beginner's Mind. Yeah. I mean, my own personal interest is I am Jewish as well, and grew up that way in Montreal. And when I met up with Ram Dass in my early, or 23, 4, whatever it was, and went off and followed him back to India. So I got completely involved, of course, in Eastern thought, and particularly Hinduism and Buddhism. And I wouldn't say left behind. We probably talked about this, Rami, in a podcast a couple of years ago. But, it's not that I left anything. I didn't leave. You can't leave. And but my engagement with it as a practice certainly was not in any way, shape, or form on a parallel with my involvement with Eastern mysticism, shall we say. This book, so I saw this, and I thought, well, this is attractive to me, and it really helped kind of reorient myself a little bit back towards much of what, I mean, I went to school, in parochial school. I was in like a Talmud Torah was the name of the school. Like it was, you learned your lessons half the day in Hebrew and half the day in English, right? So, which was very difficult for me at that time. I think difficult for anybody.
I was going to say, that's difficult for anybody. That's serious learning, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a way in which I became a little negative, shall we say, but more around what you bring up all the time is, the core thing which I think really repels people is good and evil and heaven and hell and that duality. Let me ask you just right off the bat, you grew up in this, and where did you live when you were growing up as
I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts. I grew up in an Orthodox home. I didn't grow up the way you did. I had afternoon Hebrew school. After public school, I went to Hebrew school.
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about, just the way, because we had similar backgrounds, why wasn't it enough for either one of us? Right? You found Ram Dass. At 16, I was already interested in Zen. I went to, I don't know, a workshop. I don't even know what you call it. But I took a bus into Boston. I sat for a day-long program with Kaplo Roshi, Philip Kaplo.
Oh, Philip.
I was really interested in all this stuff. I was sitting Zen as I thought. I was practicing Zazen from a book,
Yeah.
And I took it more seriously when I had took in college. I majored in Buddhism and then sat Zazen more formally at a Zendo. But why wasn't Judaism sufficient for either of us? What was missing for you?
Just really the interior life, I mean, the investigation. Now you can speak to this way beyond myself, but, that was available, the Jewish mystical tradition that was available. Somehow, I never encountered it until later, until after I'd gotten into Eastern stuff. And then when I encountered it, it made sense. But I was already on that path of, bhakti yoga, mindfulness, and everything that we got when we were in India. So being that I was already on that path, it was just backwards reflecting. And I think that's most of the, as you know, and as we said and discussed last time, many of the people, there was a lot of people who met Neem Karoli Baba who were Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the beginning, it was like Ram Dass and myself and Krishna Das and Ramesh, and we were all that. And what's the first thing that he's talked about? Christ. I believe that because of his firmly being in non-duality, because when you were around him, and there was not, you weren't feeling like a us and them kind of thing at all, me and you. And I believe Christ is Jewish, and ultimately, that whole ball of wax, I just think that the Jewish heritage held on to more of the pieces that allowed people to go inside themselves and be on that kind of a journey, whereas Christianity, well, mystical Christianity has that as well. But I think we missed that boat in our more primary years.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, partly I agree because, the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, was for adults. I mean, it says so in the practice. You have to be 40 years old and married before you can begin studying it. But I think in addition to that, this is a guess, but my guess is that growing up in the 50s, in the shadow of the Shoah, in the shadow of the Holocaust, my rabbis were overwhelmingly concerned with preserving form. And that's what you got to keep the tradition. You got to keep kosher. You got to keep the Sabbath. You got to do as many of the rules as possible, because there are a third of the Jews were killed, and there's fewer and fewer people keeping the rules. And we got to keep the form intact, and we'll get around to the spiritual later. But later means, I think, this is chutzpah, Dick, I guess. But later, I think, could mean never, until much later when you get the Reconstructionist movement, maybe, but you get the renewal movement, certainly, with the Neo-Hasidism and Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi bringing the spiritual back in. But some of us, we didn't know there was a spiritual to wait for in Judaism. Yeah. So we were looking for something else. And we were looking for it, in our teenage years, in our 20s. And there were and lots of us were Jews. And like you said, and we found it in Hinduism, we found it in Buddhism, we found it in Sufism, but we didn't find it in Judaism. There was no one to lead us in that direction. At least my experience was. There was no one to lead us in that direction. Yeah. And that was a shame. I was with Ram Dass once. I don't remember when, maybe in the early 2000s. We were there was a Jewish meditation retreat. And I think we were in New York. No, someplace in California. I think maybe, it was in California, because I remember having to run from Southern California to Northern California. It must have been San Francisco for this retreat. And he was on stage, and he said that if he had known about all this Jewish mystical stuff, all this Jewish meditation practice, he didn't have to go to India. But, when he went to India, no one knew about these things. Yeah. So it was a very well-kept secret, which is true. And yet at the same time, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head,
Yeah.
even the Jewish meditation practices, even the spirituality within Judaism, never, I'm probably overstating this, never or at least rarely gets beyond or slips into the non-dual to the extent that you drop the labels, you drop the tribal. You know, you get St. Paul saying, there is no Jew or Greek, slave or free, male or female in Christ, right? To me, that's Christ consciousness. That's Buddha mind.
Yeah,
That's, when you reach that level of consciousness, all the labels fall away. Your sense of separate self is gone. So, I mean, Paul's Jewish, so there's a Jew who got that. In the Gospel of Thomas, I can't quote it, but it's Logia 22, Jesus says, when you can make the two one, the inside like the outside, the upper like the lower, the masculine and the feminine, you remove the divisions. You don't, it's all, you see it all part of the greater non-duality. Then you've entered the kingdom of heaven. Of course, the word kingdom is already problematic, but you enter the realm of the divine consciousness.
Yeah.
And again, he's Jewish and he's stepped out beyond the tribal limitations. But most of my experience with Jewish spirituality, it's still Jewish spirituality. Now, you can go and study Hindu spirituality, or you can study Muslim spirituality and Christian spirituality, but what really interests me is when there's no adjective. So you're dealing with Ramana Maharshi, and you're dealing with Nisargadatta Maharaj, or Ramesh Balkazar, or Ram Dass. I mean, it's at the end of the Heart Sutra, it says, because we used to chant this every day in the Zendo, gate, gate, para, gate, parasam, gate, bodhisva, gone, 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 all the way gone, taking it in the context of this conversation, gone beyond all labels, all adjectives, until all you have is that moment of svaha, of wow, this transcendent and imminent realization all at once that has no labels. And that's what I wanted at 16. I'm guessing you wanted something like that in your 20s.
That, yeah.
And no religion gives it to you because every religion is addicted to its adjectival state. But I don't think Ram Dass was. I don't think Alan Watts was. I don't think...
but that took a while for both of them. Maybe Alan was a little younger. But, Ram Dass was completely materialistically oriented, going in and being successful in the university and having...
Oh, but I mean, but post that.
Post that, but that was a little further down, so...
Yeah.
But I like what you... we should let people know what you were thinking about putting this book together. I think you were thinking what we're speaking to right now.
No, I was thinking about making money. Why go through the trouble of publishing a book? But that's that Zen Mind, Jewish Mind as a book. It makes two claims, or it looks at two things. One is my experience with Koan study, and my experience with the way rabbis are taught to use language. And I think they're very, very similar. And that is their linguistic traditions that are focused on destroying language. That, the Jews deconstruct language to come up with new language. And I think in Zen, you do the same thing. Even though it claims to be a tradition beyond language, it's steeped in language. And but you use words to get beyond the dead word to the living word. And that's, I think they do that in both the Zen and the Jewish traditions. And it makes for some wild play with your Zen teacher and with the rabbis. These people are not it's caught in these, in these logical, didactic, linear modes. They free associate, and they're looking for you to free associate to the point where, it's crazy wisdom. From an outsider's perspective, it looks like it's insanity. But in fact, from the inside of the game, it's a liberating breakthrough of language, because our whole sense of self is linguistic. Yeah. Everything is what my mind is talking about. So you can't defeat the language from the outside, but you can deconstruct it or defeat it from the inside by showing how absurd it is. And Judaism has these wonderful tools for doing that. So anyway, that's what I was looking at in the first half of the book. In the second half of the book, I was playing with, and that's because the book, like I said, the title is my homage to Suzuki Roshi, and the second half is an homage to Thich Nhat Hanh, where Thich Nhat Hanh had that series of books: how to eat, how to sleep, how to walk, and the second half of the book has the same chapter headings, but from my own Jewish perspective. So it has the things he talked about, and then I added a few, like how to take a shit.
Yeah.
he doesn't have a book.
What?
He doesn't have a book that talks
Which
about
is important, particularly if you're in India.
It's important to me.
Yeah.
At 75, almost the end of my 75th year, if I can do that every day, it's like, this is a good day.
Mitzvah, yeah. Hey, can you tell this story? I love this. Your encounter with, encounter's not the right word, but sitting with Suzuki Roshi, who was Leonard Cohen's teacher and spent quite a bit of time with him. Can you tell about, it was about him, you go into an interview with him, right?
My Koan
the Koan
study with him. Yeah. So we have to say Suzuki Roshi had
we got
lots of problems.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many people with a lot of problems, teachers, these days.
Yeah. Right. A lot of people have problems.
But it doesn't discount that thing in them that was able to transmit teachings. You can't discount. I mean, I don't know why. You think the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, right?
And he had problems.
He had problems. But that book
there's the
is
teacher
phenomenal.
and there's the teaching.
Yeah, right.
So you want to separate the two. But so he was my Roshi, Suzuki Roshi, and Leonard Cohen was the Jikijitsu, the senior monk at the session where this was happening.
Oh, he was there when you in this period for you?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh.
So Suzuki Roshi, this is what I was told. I was told that he thought Americans were not the brightest Buddhists on the tree, if I can mix my metaphors. So he would create koan that were more suited. He would try to individualize the koan to you. So I went to see him for my first sanzen, my first interview with the master, and gives me a koan. And it's very ritualized. I mean, you're sitting in a very strict setting. In Soto Zen, you face the wall. You don't see anybody. But in Rinzai Zen, and this was a Rinzai setting, you face one another and you're looking at the floor. And then Leonard Cohen was walking up and down in between with the keisaku, the long stick, and he would whack you on the shoulders if you seem to be drowsing. So anyway, we're sitting there, and it's quite serious. And I'm in my senior year, I guess, senior year of college, and I'm really serious Zen Buddhist, which means I'm full of shit. I mean, my seriousness is 99.999% performative. I mean, I'm just into the whole thing. And I go in to see him, and it's all done by bells. You get up and you bow to your cushions, and you bow to the group when you get out, and you have to go through a series of you go to a line and a series of bows. And anyway, it's very, very ritualized.
Yeah.
And if you screw up, there's someone who throws you back and you can't see him and you got to go back to your cushions. So you learn the ritual and you get to see him eventually. And you're sitting Japanese style, almost, he's sitting cross-legged on cushions. You're sitting on cushions, but Japanese style, almost knee to knee. And I was told that he didn't speak English. And my Buddhism teacher at the university, Tai Uno, was his translator. And because I thought he spoke no English, I wasn't paying any attention. I went in and did the bowing and everything, but I was just sitting there. He had a little bell. He was going to ring it and send me back to meditate. And I said, what's the point? Because he doesn't speak English and there was no translator in the room. So what was he going to say to me that I was possibly going to understand? He didn't ask me any questions. He was talking. So he's talking to me, and I'm not listening because
it's Japanese.
It's Japanese, and I don't speak Japanese. But after a while, he has this little gnarled stick, and he's hitting it on the wood floor that we're sitting on. And I'm just sitting there, and I hear this. And then I start to understand what he's saying, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy's amazing. I'm understanding Japanese. Like a universal translator from Star Trek or something. And then I realized he's been speaking English the whole time. Very heavy Japanese accent, but he's been speaking English. So now I feel like a total ass. And I'm trying to, what is he saying? And what he's saying to me over and over again, excuse me, what he's saying to me is, where is stick? Where is God when stick hits floor? Because he's got the little stick and he keeps hitting it on the floor. Where is God when stick hit floor? I don't know. And I'm just surprised that I could even understand what he's saying. So I just said, God is here. And he takes the bell and he rings the bell because, more zazen. And I have to leave the room and I bow my way out and I go back and sit on the cushions. And then periodically through the retreat, I won't call it a session, it wasn't that long, but through the day's retreat, several days retreat, there's sitting meditation, there's walking meditation, and then you hear a bell that says, the Roshi is in for business. If you want to go see him, you bow out and you get in line and you can give him a better answer. So I kept going, and he would sit there and he would hit, where is God when the stick hits the floor? And I would give him another answer, then another answer, another answer, and all I got back was ringing the bell, more zazen, more Zen meditation. It just went on and on and on and on. Finally, I come up with a brilliant answer, which of course is total bullshit, because if you've come up with an answer, it's wrong. But I was so full of myself as a very serious Zen student, I was sure this one was going to earn me the little Satori enlightenment badge. Yeah. So I was psyched, waiting for him to ring the bell. He's open for business. I got up, I bowed, I went out, and I bowed to the community. I got in line, did the whole thing. And I'm really primed for this. And my plan was, sitting across from him, I thought he was a little old man. He was 60 years old. I'm 15 years his senior now, but I thought he was an old man. And he's going to take the stick, go to hit it on the floor. He's done it a million times already. I know what to expect. I'm going to thrust out my hand, grab the stick, pull it out of his hand, and say, no stick, no floor, just God. Mm-hmm. Right?
Good plan.
It's brilliant. Oh, it's a great play. It's a great idea. It's a great answer. It should be in the Mumonkan, the great records of Koan answers. I mean, this should put me in the Zen books for all time. No stick, no floor, just God. It's perfect. So I'm waiting. I guess no one told him what I was going to do, so he wasn't cooperative. So he takes the stick and he pulls it down, starts to hit the floor. I grab the stick, I pull the stick, but he didn't let go. He was supposed to let go, He didn't let go. Instead, he yanks it back really strong, like a keto move. And he throws me over his shoulder. And I go literally. And I go slamming on the floor. And he just takes the bell and says, "More Zazen." So I pull myself up and get the hell out of there. So now I'm finished. I'm broken. That was my best shot at beating the Koan game. So I said, that's it. I'm not going to see him again. I can't beat that. I love meditating. I love sitting zazen. So I'm just going to wait it out. I'll go. He can ring the bell all he wants. I don't have to see him. It's voluntary. I'm not going again. The next day, I'm sitting there. He rings the bell. And I say to myself, I'm not going. The next thing I know, I'm the next guy in line to see him. I blanked out. And literally, I mean, you could say no mind, but that's romanticizing. I don't know what it's called psychologically. I have no memory. I wasn't present. But I functioned perfectly because I didn't get rejected. I got up, went through all the ritual motions, moved along the different stations, and was now the next person in line to see the Roshi with the new answer. And I had no idea how I got there. And I said to myself, you can't quit. Well, you can't voluntarily leave when you've gone through all this stuff. You have to go in. I said, shit, now what do I do? So I said, no, this is stupid. I can't leave. I'll just go in. I'll do the rest of the bowing. I'll sit on the cushions, and he's going to hit the stick, and I'll say, I don't know. And he'll say, more zazen, and that's that. So I do that. I go in. I go through the rest of the bowing. I'm sitting in front of him. He takes the stick, and I guess he hits the floor, but I blank out again. I only know what happened by reconstructing it from where I found myself after I answered the koan. What I must have done is, instead of grabbing the stick, I must have done this. I must have taken my hands, put them over my head, and thrown myself, my whole body, full body slam, on the wood floor to his left, my right. Big booming bam on the floor. Big thunder slam, yelling at the top of my lungs, because I heard it echoing in my head afterwards. God is here. I became the stick. That's how I remember it. I became the stick. I hit the floor. I was the stick. I was God. God is here. And then I sat up, and then I blushed. I turned red. And he's laughing. And he says, good answer, but only 75%. More zazen. He rings the bell, and I have to go back and meditate. And in the book, I mentioned that I told Leonard about it. I said, why was that a 70? Why was that a C? And he said, you blushed. You blushed. You doubted your own experience. You became self-conscious, not with a big S or the no S, not the no self. But your ego came right back, and you were embarrassed. And, if I couldn't, I don't know how you'd say it, but I couldn't stay with the experience. I immediately separated from it and was embarrassed by what I had done. Had I fully integrated the fact that I was the stick and I was the divine along with the universe, I might have gotten a B-. I couldn't hold it.
Such a great story, Ronnie.
Yeah, that went on a little longer than I anticipated, or you anticipated.
No. I love that.
That's the extent of my Zen enlightenment.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, just thinking about being with Neem Karoli Baba back in the day, a lot of that was going on, the same damn thing, where really it was breaking all of that stuff in the mind that we're stuck on, right? And that's, he did that, and there was no name to it, there was no practice, there was no nothing except the reality of facing that mind and seeing it disintegrate. because it could no longer fathom. Like you went out in that moment.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
So you've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you haven't experienced it because you weren't there.
Yeah.
But
But
you've
in the way that we're speaking to it, yes.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at that moment, you're not a Jew. I mean, it's no male, no female, no slave, no free, no Jew, no Greek, no nothing. And that's what I think these great teachers are trying to teach us, either within a system or outside a system. And people resist it.
Yeah.
Because we're so in love with the box.
Yep. The me, which you talk about in the book too. You know, I love Zen Master Dogen, I think. In fact, we did an online course, and that was his saying was a featured thing about enlightenment is just here now. He said, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things. When actualized by myriad things, your body and mind as well as the body and mind of others drop away. No trace of realization remains, and this no trace continues endlessly. I love that quote.
Yeah.
And this is the beginning of the book, right? And this thing, to study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things. And you talk about your own experience, which you really just related the most pertinent story that could exemplify what you're speaking to here. And the other thing that I love that you said, there is no encounter with the divine until we are willing to step off the path of the comfortable, the safe, and the conventional. And curiosity goes completely away if we stay immersed in that solidity, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's true. And of course, it's all the divine. So you're always encountering the divine. But the idea is, as long as we're in a system, the system always has the other. And the other is by definition not the divine. But there is no other. I mean, that's Ram Dass's new book.
Yeah.
Right? There is no other.
Yeah, there is no other.
And that's so hard.
It is.
But like you said just a while ago, given the I forget how you put it. It was really very nice. The language that we're working with language, and so we end up having to deal with its limitations.
Yeah.
But there really is no other. Einstein has this. He wrote this letter in the 1950s that got printed in the New York Times, I think, in the 1970s. And in it, he talks about what he calls the optical, in English, it was printed in the paper as the optical delusion. But in German, the original letter says optical illusions. It's more like Maya.
Yeah.
And he says that the way our brains are structured and our eyes are set in our heads, that we inevitably see other. It looks like, you and I are separate. It looks like the stuff on my desk is separate from me. But he says that's an illusion, that we're all part of a singular system. He calls it a universe in the letter. And that the illusion, he says, is a prison for us. And we have to break out of the prison and by shattering the illusion. And when we do that, then we have this sense of, I can't remember exactly how he puts it, but this sense of compassion for everything. And that's what whether we're talking from a Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever perspective we're talking from, that's what we're talking about. That's how you know that the experience that you didn't have because you weren't there is being integrated in such a way as to be authentic, because you're more compassionate, as opposed to more tribalistic.
Yeah. As you say, as long as we are separate entities, separate from one another and from nature and cosmos as a whole, we feel alienated, alone, and are condemned to seek a way out of our supposed isolation. And now look at us as a society, particularly here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, I've told this story before on the podcast, I'm sure. But that book was, so this is last year, I was actually in New York in the summer, and we were doing a benefit with Krishnadas and all that. And the book was going to come out a few months later, There Is No Other, Ram Dass. And I mentioned it to old satsang, for old community friends. And it was shocking. I got back, yeah, that's great. Maybe first we can hang so-and-so. Okay? I'm talking about, 40, 50-year Dharma practitioners. So the level of difficulty with what is going on to actuate oneself into a place where you are not separating from anybody or anything is a tall order these days, no?
That's true. Now, I don't know. I don't know how serious they were about hanging.
No, that was just a rude comment, but expressing the frustration, their particular frustration, and saying, okay, you can say, Ram Dass, you can say there is no other, but in actuality, and then, they go through a litany of how the other is, acting.
But let's look at that for a sec. Because maybe, there is no other, but that doesn't erase difference, right? There is no other doesn't mean everything is the same.
No.
Right. So once you recognize, can there be, how do we create a just society without othering? That's an interesting question. I don't know how you would choose to answer that, but fascists are different than liberal Democrats. So I see them as politically other, but I don't see them as other than the whole, because there is nothing other than the whole. But I also think, now this may be a little strange, but I'm the whole. So I can't escape my inner fascist, I have the shadow side. I have my own shadow. I have my own dark side that is part of me, and that when we say there's no other, if we make I think it's an error. If we make the error and say the shadow doesn't exist, then we're screwed. But if we can say the shadow is not other, but a part of me, then we can deal with it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, this person was expressing tremendous frustration. Not obviously, but in this case, a liberal Democrat, I am sure. We never got into that. And but she is reactive. It was a she, which makes it even a little bit more interesting. I don't know why. But it's somebody I knew, and I never expected that from them in that moment. But all of us, that darkness that's in that shadow that's in all of us is doing that on some level or another, especially if they're reacting off of news and whatever, digital BS. So I would say that the recognition of our shadow within the concept of there is no other, that is what Ram Dass was talking about. The
Right.
subtitle
And
of
that's
his,
what we're saying here.
is how to, engage with wholeness, understand the wholeness that we are part of and that is inside us. So,
Right.
yeah, there's a...
But sorry. Don't
No, go
finish
ahead.
the
Go
thought.
ahead, Ram.
Well, I guess one of the things that troubles me is that we have people who just don't see the whole,
Yeah.
right? And others who light wash the whole so that it's only light, it's
Yeah.
only love, it's only,
Yeah.
and so and they become easily, their own dark side. They can't see it because they've light washed it. They can say,
Yeah.
no, this is, I can't be like that because I'm all light and love.
Yeah, otherwise known as spiritual
Bypass.
bypass.
Well, yeah, maybe that's right. But yeah, I mean, there's certain kinds of spirituality that are so out of balance that they're not whole. They just don't accept the dark
Right.
side.
Yeah. We used to, when we first came back from India, as Canadian, I lived in Quebec. And I actually lived out in the countryside. My father had a farm out there, and it was just a couple of hours to Tail of the Tiger, Trungpa Rinpoche's retreat center. And he spent a lot of time there, especially those couple of summers, early 70s. And we would go and, hang out with him, and he would give talks and so on. And he referred to us, oh, here's the light and lovers. They're coming. And, it was like, and he especially dug at Ram Dass. I mean, incredibly. But Ram Dass loved him and appreciated him and all of that. But the reality is, I think, he's speaking to many of the young hippies that went over to India and got into whatever tradition from Hinduism to Buddhism, and then just applied their own ego mind to it all and brought it back. And, that's mostly what we fortunately, though, and I think this is a big deal, we were, through the process of being with Neem Karoli Baba, somehow Buddhism cropped up. It wasn't just bhakti yoga. We all ended up in Vipassana, of course. That's where we met Joseph and Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg and Jack. And I think that helped us a lot because it gave us, and to this day, a discriminating wisdom perspective. And I think, and that's something that I like to talk about a lot, whether in retreats or here in podcasts, whatever. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I agree. So you met the whole mishpacha, the whole Jewish family.
Over over in Bodh Gaya it was Goenka. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a big deal for us, actually. There's one thing that I loved. I loved a lot of stuff in here, Rami. It really rang the bell for me. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote, "A religious person is a person who holds God and humanity in one thought at one time." This speaks to a little bit of what we're talking about. "At all times, and therefore who suffers harm when harm is done to others, whose greatest passion is compassion, whose greatest strength is love and defiance of despair." So these are the kind, I was so happily to be reintroduced a little bit, right, to my heritage. By virtue, I particularly love the saints and the sayings of the saints, and this really it really rang the bell, And we're talking about.
Read the last bit of it again.
Okay. Well, it's all in one sentence. So a religious person is a person who holds God and humanity in one thought, right? At one time, at all times, who suffers harm when harm is done to others, whose greatest passion is compassion. That line alone, it should be a bumper sticker. Our greatest passion is compassion. This reminds me of His Holiness. This could be His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as far as I'm concerned, whose greatest strength is love and defiance of despair.
Yeah. So two things I want to, the beginning of that one we can pick up in a second, but defiance of despair.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I get up every day, and after I do all kinds of other things that are in the light and love category, the meditation and chanting and walk my dog.
So we're in the same line.
So I'm primed for the day. Then I turn on the TV news or read the newspaper and I go, oh, now I'm back in the pits of despair. But, to be in defiance of despair, I think that's really crucial. To be in defiance of despair without, I don't know what, and I can't do this, but to be in defiance of despair without anger, without rancor, without violence, without thoughts of violence anyway, is there a way to be in defiance of despair that doesn't turn you into the very thing you're despairing over?
Yeah.
I mean, that is really a good question that I have to constantly remind myself.
Yeah.
And I think the key to doing that, going from the end of the sentence to the beginning, is to hold God and humanity, or God and the human, in the same, I forget now what he said, same thought at the same time.
In one thought at one time.
Thought, yeah.
Yeah.
I think his first book, I wrote
Rabbi
a little...
Heschel?
Yeah. I think Heschel's first book is a poetry book. He wrote it in Yiddish. And I think it's called, I could get this totally wrong, Adam Hashem HaMeforash, I think, which means, in English maybe, humanity, the divine name. And the only reason I even know that is I wrote a little book called Rabbi Rami Guide to God, and it was translated into Polish. And the publisher in Poland invited me to come and do a tour around Poland on this book. And one of the things that I was asked to do was to deliver the Abraham Heschel lecture to this Abraham Heschel community. Anyway, so I gave a talk on that book. And he makes this case that the human being is the name of God.
Well.
And I mean, I wasn't prepared to talk about this, so I'm not going to remember all the things that you could say about it. So I'll just keep it to one thing I do know. So in the Kabbalah, in Jewish mysticism, there's a direct association between the human body and the name of God in Hebrew when the name of God is written vertically. Huh. So normally it's in Hebrew, you're right. Everything is from right to left.
Yeah.
But because, like we were saying earlier, the rabbis played with language to the point you can read things right to left, you can read it left to right, you can turn it inside out, and you can read it vertically. So if you take the name of God, and I don't know how to do this, visually on Zoom, but if you take the name of God and you write it vertically, the first letter, the Yud, looks like a 7, and it's supposed to be like your forehead, and it goes down your nose to your chin. And it's supposed to represent your face. And sometimes you see artists who do just like a that's like this supposed to be the human head, and then they put eyes on it or something. So that's the first letter is your head. And then the second letter is a hey, and it's got a bar, which is your shoulders, and then it's got two side bars, and that's your two arms. And the third letter is just a straight line. It's supposed to be from your sternum to your waist. And the fourth letter of God's name is the same as the second. It's a bar across the waist, and two lines go down representing your legs and your feet. So every time you see a human being, you see the name of God written vertically.
Wow.
And so there's a practice that goes with the explanation. And the practice is whenever you encounter another human being, you're encountering literally the divine name. So when you're in India or in a Hindu setting, we always go namaste or namaskar. I bow to the divine within you. But when I used to teach in India, I would always suggest to people that that's a bad translation. It's not the God within you. That's very dualistic. We should understand namaste as I bow to the divine that is you. And that's the idea, is you are the holy name of God. Wow. So every time I see another human, I see the name of God. Now in Kabbalah, every atom of creation has the same divine shape, even though you can't see it with a microscope. It doesn't look like that. But everything in the universe is actually a variation of the divine name in that. Everything has that shape if you can see it properly. So when you encounter a tree, the tree should look like that, but it's in your imagination. Only people actually have it, but actually the shape is in front of you. But everything, my dog, everything has it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So that there's a chant that goes with it. You can't pronounce the name of God, because it's literally no vowels, it's unpronounceable. So there's euphemisms that you use instead. The one I like is Shekhinah, which is the divine presence, feminine noun.
Sure.
So it's Shiviti Shekhinah Lenegdi Tamid. It means I see or I place the divine before me always. And when you're walking around, you say Shiviti Shekhinah Lenegdi Tamid. Whenever you see another human, you're reminding yourself, oh, look, the divine is happening there. This homeless person, this person in need of help, this whatever, right?
Angry person.
This angry person, whatever it is. And so you're always, when I'm walking around with my dog, because we walk very early in the morning, and sometimes I see people, and sometimes I go, oh, maybe I got to cross the street, I'm scared. Is this safe to be out? But I just say, Shiviti Shekhinah Lenegdi Tamid. No, this is the divine happening here. And even though I'm not going to be stupid and put myself in danger, and even though sometimes my dog gets agitated and I don't want to put the other person in danger, I'm responding to the divine and not to some projection in my mind of some other.
Right. That's
so he says, can you hold God, or the question is, can you hold God and human in the same thought at the same time? Right. And the Kabbalah says it's easy because you're looking at the divine name right in front of you.
Can you, would you mind doing two things? We're getting close to the end here, but I want to make sure I don't forget this. If you could send me the name of Rabbi Heschel's book, I don't know if it's available, if anybody could find it, but if you can find something.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Okay, that would be great.
I'll send it to
you.
you.
The other thing is the mantra.
Sure.
That would be a fabulous thing.
Yeah, I will send both.
Okay, great. We could be here for a couple of hours.
So can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the pictures of Ram Dass behind you.
Oh, behind me, yeah.
And
the one on my left is actually a portrait painted by Joan Baez.
Really?
Yeah, and given to him when before he died. They had a thing in Maui, and she came, just honoring him, his life's work, etc. Yeah.
So here's I guess I have a question. Did you get to see him near the end to say thank you?
Yep. I mean, I had to leave because we had a retreat in Maui, as we always did in the beginning of December. And then I knew 2 weeks later I was going to have to go in the hospital to have an operation. So I knew he was failing. I mean, that he sat there and went through this retreat, the enormous amount of guts that took, it was just extraordinary. Anyhow, so it's interesting because I was saying goodbye, and he lifted himself up a little bit off, with his good arm off the bed, and he completely contacted me in the same exact way and moment with the first time I met him in Montreal when I went to find him in an apartment there. I walked in the door and he encountered me, completely creating this field of just love, and whatever you need can get fulfilled in this moment without saying a word. And it engendered this gigantic trust, and that trust led me to India with him a year later, whatever it was. So yeah, I had a bookend of Ram Dass, the first moment I met him to the last. Yeah, it was really
So if it's okay, I want to share a story about him.
Yeah.
So I was hosting a Inner Directions conference in La Jolla, and he was featured speaker. And we had a dinner. He couldn't. He's in a wheelchair. So he was in a separate part of the person's house, but people sat with him, and I waited till everybody was gone, and I just managed just to sit with him. He wasn't responding. He was just listening. And I got to say thank you. That was important for me personally. The next day, I introduced him. He came out and they wheeled him out. And he said to the audience, and this is the point, it was just so powerful. He explained that he had a stroke, and he explained that he had aphasia and that he was going to lose, he didn't always remember the words that he wanted to say.
Yeah.
And he said to the audience, you're going to know the word that I can't recall. And you're going to want to yell it out for me. He says, don't do that. He said, if I get to a point where the word isn't coming, we'll sit in silence. I won't know the word. You might know it, but you keep it to yourself. We'll just sit in silence. If the word comes to me, I'll say it and then move on. If it doesn't come to me, something else will come to me, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But don't jump in. And I thought that was really beautiful. And then he started, and then that happened several times. And each time, luckily, thank goodness, the people acceded to his request. And so no one jumped in. And he just sat with grace, and it was just beautiful. He just sat, and then he never picked up the word, but he just sat and then said something else and moved on. And it was always wise, and it was always perfect. And it was the gift. I don't know what he said. Whatever he was talking about, I listened to tapes, read a book. It was the same stuff. Didn't matter what he said. What mattered was how he handled that situation. Moment. It was so beautiful. It was not the. I don't think it was the last time. It may have been the last time I saw him, but it was such a gift to anybody who was willing to accept it.
Of course, this makes me completely feel guilty because
that was my point.
Yeah, because all through our history, not just after his stroke, and all through our history of doing things together, I was a quote-unquote, which is what I do, I'm a producer. And he would push back on it all the time. Nope, not doing that. No, forget about that. No, did you really have to, constant, and we'd be on stage, and I'd get the look. The last moment he was on stage, and people were walking by and saying goodbye and stuff, and I was just standing there, and he caught my eye, and he went like this. This is what I was left with. The way that he was able to be in that chair and not be caught by the chair, meaning everything, was extraordinary. If I could have 10% of that when it's my time, I'd be happy. I mean, just the courage was extraordinary. Yeah. Extraordinary. Everybody, by the way, oh wait, I have to say one thing. I want to read the afterword in this book, Rami. Zen Mind, meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha. Okay. And Jewish Mind, met the Buddha, killed the Buddha, called Cornfield, Salzburg, and Koan attorneys at law. That made me laugh so hard. So true. in a funny kind of way. I mean, here's the book, everybody. I like the cover, too. Yeah, it's got so much stuff. All those great quotes, Rabbi. Wow. I mean, I personally love great quotes. And then I'll take this book with me, to retreats or something. Oh, wait, here's something I want to share with you, So we will share the link for you to be able to pick the book up. And Rabbi Rami will absolutely share a couple of the things we were talking about here and links so you can pick up on them, including you're doing retreats and so on still?
No.
No. You're not.
No, I keep up my writing career, but I no longer travel and I no longer
Really?
do any of that.
Well, you're in Nashville. You sure I can't get you to Boone, North Carolina? Not that far.
We can talk about it offline, but I no longer can do that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we shall accept that. I'm glad we had this opportunity, Rabbi. Everybody, this is Mindrolling on the Be Here Now Network. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com/Mindrolling, and then also check out all the other wonderful podcasts of the people that we just mentioned, the law firm of Salzburg, actually, and of course Cornfield. But Koan, I don't know which Koan we're talking about. A lot of Koan. Leonard. Oh, is that it? Oh, I missed that. You know what? Because I was expecting Joseph Goldstein.
Yeah, I should have. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, because you had
Leonard
to try
was on my mind.
Yeah. Leonard is on my mind a lot. Being from Montreal, he was an Upa guru for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
My pleasure, Raghu. Thank you.
We'll see you all later on